Professor Dawkins, is tobacco harm reduction a social justice issue?
Well, smoking prevalence is not equal across all sections of society. So we see smoking prevalence being much higher and nicotine dependence being much higher in more disadvantaged groups. So amongst people with lack of long-term accommodation, amongst those with mental health conditions, amongst those with other addictions. And in some of those groups, for example, in smokers, in those experiencing homelessness, smoking rates are exceptionally high, between 60 to 80%. So of course, tobacco-related issues are going to affect those in socially disadvantaged groups much more than those in more advantaged groups.
So how come it's not really referenced, or it doesn't seem to be taken into account by public health, which tends to lean towards social justice issues?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think saying, the UK is great and we're much better than the US, but it absolutely is recognised in the tobacco control plan for England. There's a huge emphasis on smoking-related health inequalities and a focus on disadvantaged groups. And coming back to the House of Commons Science and Technology inquiry, one of the recommendations there was to support e-cigarette use amongst individuals in mental health inpatient settings. So there is more of a movement towards focusing on tobacco harm reduction in those particularly disadvantaged groups. And our work on e-cigarette use in the homeless has also shown that, e-cigarettes are well accepted, and people in more disadvantaged groups still have a strong interest in quitting smoking. Oh, sorry.
Welcome to COVID world. Dogs, cats, kids. First of all, allow me to say, on behalf of everybody in North America, yay, the UK is great. It's okay to say that. But yeah, here it does not seem to enter into the debate at all. It's very hard to get that message through that, tobacco harm reduction is and should be a more prominent issue with regards to around social justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in the US, there are many, many more studies on smoking cessation in the homeless than there are in the UK. We were one of the first groups to actually look at smoking cessation in people experiencing homelessness, whereas in the US, there are already many, many more studies that we don't have an answer yet. It's still very hard to find a solution to this problem. And I am aware of a few recent trials that have been registered on the trial registry that are looking at the effects of e-cigarettes in some of those disadvantaged communities, such as the homeless, and in those with other addictions and mental health diagnoses. So there is some movement there. There are some positive steps.
So I guess for vaping advocates out there, they may want to, find some of that research and start, advocating around it. I think a lot of the problem here is that if there is that amount of research that's out there, certainly in the US, as you said, okay. Advocates for vaping haven't seemed to grab onto that as an issue and then, vocalize it. Now, I know you're a researcher and not an advocate. That's what makes you guys so great over the UK. You're not making research to conform to a presupposed idea. But yeah, you know what? I don't even want to ask you that because, I know that our advice has always been, come on, advocates, you should be using the social justice thing, especially for a lot of vapors that tend to lean towards more on that kind of political side. How come you're not, grabbing this research? You're not making this an issue?
It is in its infancy, though, Brent, with regards to e-cigarettes and other tobacco harm reduction products. It certainly is still in its infancy. So I'd say there's around 50 studies that have looked at smoking cessation amongst homeless populations in the US. But that's more around nicotine replacement therapy, around text messaging, around motivational interviewing, more traditional approaches. It's only been much more recently where there's been more of a focus on e-cigarettes in groups such as people experiencing homelessness and people with other addictions. So when I say there is research going on, it is going on, but very little has got to the publication stage yet.